The question of who's going to play quarterback for the Cleveland Browns next season just got a little bit more interesting because enter Joe Flacco's name into that conversation. Our Jonathan Jones reporting that the veteran QB is signing a one-year deal with the Browns. He will now join up with Deshaun Watson and Kenny Pickett in that Cleveland QB room, with Watson expected to miss most, if not all, of the upcoming season because of his Achilles injury. Flacco is now back with the Browns after being there in 2023 and helping them make the playoffs, where they were eventually bounced by the Texans in the first round. So let's have more of this conversation about Joe Flacco and the Browns with the man who's reporting we just mentioned, our NFL insider Jonathan Jones. And JJ, let's talk about Joe. Is he the week 1 starter in Cleveland?
You know, right now, I think that he is. Now, if and when we hear from the Cleveland Browns, be it general manager Andrew Berry or head coach Kevin Stefanski, they may tell you that this is going to be an open competition once they get to OTAs, once they get to mandatory minicamp in the middle of June, maybe once they get to training camp. And then, like in every quarterback competition, what coaches will tell you all the time is the answer will reveal itself. But when you look at the contract, when you look at the familiarity, when you look at a Cleveland Browns team that, you know, let's be honest about it, there's some jobs that may be on the line this year. Are you going to go with the vet who had that comeback player of the year season with you? I didn't vote for him, by the way. Should have probably gone to Damar Hamlin, who had a pretty good comeback, all things considered, in the course of human history. But Joe Flacco could be that guy. Look, Kenny Pickett, I think that was a little bit of a controversial trade when you consider the compensation. You know, they traded away a quarterback in Dorian Thompson-Robinson as well as a pick in order to get Kenny Pickett. I should say Super Bowl winning quarterback Kenny Pickett. So let's put the proper amount of respect on his name there with the Philadelphia Eagles. But as it stands right now, if you ask me to sort of project, to play out, to simulate what the next couple of months will be, who ultimately will earn that job, I do think that it will be Joe Flacco, with Kenny Pickett ultimately backing him up. And I think you mentioned it just a little bit ago, Deshaun Watson, the question about him. I don't see him playing in 2025. I'm not sure that we haven't seen the last of Deshaun Watson in a Cleveland Browns uniform. We may, despite what he is saying on Instagram videos, we may have seen the last of Deshaun Watson in the NFL, not necessarily because of health-related reasons, but if and when the time comes, and the time will come for the Browns to depart from Deshaun Watson, who else will be out there to pick him up? And so for all of those reasons, I think that right now the Browns are staring at a week 1 starter in Joe Flacco, same as it ever was.
Yeah, with things still to change, like you mentioned, with the schedule coming up and the NFL draft now just a few weeks away, the Browns with that number 2 spot, and it seems like we don't really know what they're going to do because Cam Ward likely will be gone. Shedeur Sanders, his stock is up or down depending on who you ask. Abdul Carter sitting here tweeting about Lawrence Taylor. So all those things in mind, what are the Browns thinking at number 2?
So it will be Cam Ward to the Tennessee Titans at number 1 overall. I think that is destined to happen. The New York Giants would have to make some gargantuan offer to the Titans to then move up from 3 to 1 in order to get Cam Ward. But whoever Cam Ward goes to, and again, it will be the Tennessee Titans, he will be gone by the time the Cleveland Browns are picking at number 2. At that point, they really have 3 options, right? When you're talking about players, when you stay at 2, it's the aforementioned Shedeur Sanders, it is Abdul Carter, and it's Travis Hunter. The last couple of weeks, I've been saying that I would lean toward Travis Hunter. I'm not saying that I'm reporting that Travis Hunter will be a Cleveland Brown. But if you ask me who they're taking at 2 right now, I'd say it's probably going to be Travis Hunter. Now, look, I understand, especially in Ryan Wilson's mock draft and a number of people's mock drafts, that it would be a nice, clean, easy, and efficient way to have Shedeur Sanders get off the board at 2 or 3. I don't know that that is necessarily going to be the case. I don't know that's going to be reality. And really, the Browns have situated themselves in a very similar position to what the Giants did, right? They went out and signed Russell Wilson and signed Jameis Winston. They also have Tommy DeVito still on the roster. But what it means is it doesn't mean that they have to take a quarterback at 2, or one of the sort of niche things, what has been in vogue recently in the mock draft world, is to have the Browns trade back up into the first round to get Shedeur Sanders. Again, you know, they're mocks and they're reality. And sometimes I enjoy doing mocks, and sometimes you don't have a clean way of getting a player to a certain team, but you really want to get that player there. And so I understand folks saying, oh, the Browns are just going to trade back up. They need a quarterback of the future. Let them go get Shedeur Sanders. what I'm hearing around the NFL is that teams aren't all that crazy necessarily about Shedeur as a first-round draft pick, as a top 3, top 5, top half of the first-round draft pick. And so if you are not wild about him, if you think that you can go get a potential Pro Bowler, a starter there, and let Shedeur fall, that could certainly happen. That is a very real possibility that we see play out 13 days from now in Green Bay at the draft. So I have Travis Hunter right now I've had that for the last little bit, and then it's going to be the Giants. And do they take Shedeur Sanders, or do they take the gentleman that is in their building right now who got good marks from the doctors when he went for his medical recheck in Indianapolis this week with that stress reaction in his foot? Will it be Abdul Carter there for the Giants? Because if Shedeur doesn't go 3, I don't know where Shedeur ultimately goes in this upcoming draft.
So doubling back on Abdul Carter for a second, why not have the Browns take him and have a defensive line that's instantly stacked right there and pairing with Myles Garrett? I
mean, look, it's a great idea. But what you also just did as the Cleveland Browns is you just paid Myles Garrett a historic number, right? $40 million in average annual value. Like, they went above and beyond. Max Crosby had broken the record. He was around 36.5. They could have gone 37. They could have gone 38, 39. They went 40. And so you're paying a lot of money. There are a lot of resources involved at the edge rusher position. And when you pay a player like that, and now this is his second big contract, right? Former #1 overall pick, got his bag on a second deal. Now he's on his third deal. When you pay someone like that, who's entering his age 30 season, you are banking on him being a gold jacket player in his 30s. Right? Not just a gold jacket player in his 20s, but basically Julius Peppers, basically Lawrence Taylor. That is what the Browns are banking on. And so do you devote that sort of resource, right, when we're talking about money and millions of dollars and the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history at the time, and the #2 overall selection to a player who, well, he has some beat up shoulders. He has the foot. Do you do that right there? Or do you take the guy who's probably at the top of your board, who has clean medicals, who can play multiple positions that the coaches can play around with and do whatever they want? That's why I'm leaning Travis Hunter to Cleveland.
Yeah, funny you mentioned the Lawrence Taylor, and that's exactly what Abdul Carter put out there on X, the photo of the trading card of Lawrence Taylor, maybe linking him to the Giants, or we'll see. It could just be hearsay. It could be talk. Could be kids just having fun on social media. We'll get back to that social media spot in a second, but I want to ask you about Kirk Cousins and maybe the situation. Is this now door closed for him to be able to go to Cleveland? Where do we think he stays? Is it staying put in the A?
Look. A lot of folks, and look, I'll even raise my hand, I thought that one of the top options for Kirk Cousins would be an eventual trade to the Cleveland Browns. When you look at it, the Atlanta Falcons paid $90 million for 1 year of Kirk Cousins. By keeping him on the 5th day of the league year,